Hey everybody, how we doing? Happy Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. The NBA's back tonight after a long day off yesterday because of the National Basketball Championship in New Orleans. Congrats to Kansas on the victory. We are here. Brendan Glasheen back in the Tuesday chair with Gary and Thorne and Jeff Pratt. They are both in for Chirag Hira and Matt Meiselman. Chirag's got the NBA bet stream going on tonight. We encourage you to check that out. And Meiselman, a rare no Meiselman thing today. So interesting. Hope all is well with both of them. But this is most definitely the most important thing you should be doing in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll take you up until about 6 o'clock tonight. A lot to get to. 12 games in the NBA tonight. Big slate. Off the top, would like to mention that Gary and Thorne has a write-up over on the DraftKings playbook, dknation.draftkings.com. Fantasy basketball picks, his top NBA DFS targets and values for April 5th. So Gary and Thorne is here. Jeff Pratt, one of our newer writers to DraftKings. He has slid over to a contractor role with us, so he is doing a great job as well, getting you set for NBA slates from a DFS and betting perspective. Gary, and let's start with you, sir. Of course, like this time of year, too, I saw Julian Edlow put this on Twitter earlier today, and he's right. He's one of our contributors as well. It's a time of year where playoff races are heating up. There's really there's seeding competition at this point, trying to figure out where everyone's going to land with the regular season ending on Sunday. So at this time of year, you're monitoring injuries. There are some that are like for real. There are real injuries happening, but some where guys are resting. There's load management happening. There's just a lot of games. So what stands out to you on the slate?
Yeah, I would say a slate like this, the first thing you probably have to just look into is we've got some really lopsided spreads. And that is just a scenario where on top of everything you were just mentioning, Glash, on top of, regular players not playing or maybe not playing their full allotment of minutes, rotations really getting blown up. I guess in somewhat of a positive sense, some of these teams that have decided to not care this season, they're almost running smaller rotations than normal. So you might not know the players, but at least you kind of have some semblance of who's going to be playing of those guys whose names are just so foreign. But yeah, some of these game scripts could get a little weird tonight. And in particular, you've got a game between the Rockets and the Nets where I know Matt LaMarca, fellow DK Live contributor tweeted out this morning. He's never before in his life covering NBA DFS seen a team implied for over 130 points like the Nets are tonight. But you start having to ask yourself, how competitive is this game going to be in the fourth quarter? Are we going to have to see Steve Nash use the I need to play Kevin Durant 39 minutes card tonight? Or is it going to be more 28, 29 minutes? You've also got Joel Embiid and the 76ers going up against arguably the worst defense I can remember seeing in my life in the Indiana Pacers. This is a team that is so checked out. I believe the stat is they've given up 131.6 points per 100 possessions across their last 6 games. I have never seen a number like that before. So you've just got star players, expensive star players in these game environments where I don't know if they're going to have to play to their full minutes potential. So to me, that's probably the biggest question mark and the biggest story on this particular slate.
Yeah, that certainly complicates things. And like you said, Embiid, second most expensive player. You've got Durant in there. And then it complicates things with a Jokic because as much as the Spurs are in contention to get in the play-in tournament, are we sure they want to be in the play-in tournament? Like there's some decisions to be made there. Now, if you're talking finishing one spot better, I guess if the Spurs were to get in, there's the temptation of them trying to win against the Pelicans, which would be the case now. But the Lakers are not playing LeBron tonight, but Davis is active. So feels like the Lakers are not trying, but the Spurs could try against Denver, even though, Denver still has something to play for. Denver's still trying to clinch a playoff spot. So that's not a great example to what you're talking about, but I see what you're talking about. Jeff Pratt, loaded slate, my friend. What to you stands out?
I mean, as Gary was touching on, the giant spreads immediately stand out. The Nets, giving the Nets 17 points, which I think it is right now on DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yep.
That's kind of terrifying. I'm not sure how you can back a team in the NBA right now on any given night to win by 17 or more points. And it's not like, yes, the Rockets are horrible, right? They rank, I think, 29th in defensive rating on the year. They're absolutely atrocious, but they do push the ball. And it's not like Brooklyn has been playing out of their mind lately. I think that they're 4-5 in their last 9, something like that. They're not playing great ball. And Kyrie Irving, ever since he became a full-time player, has taken a bit of a step back. So I am wary of double-digit spreads, and especially a spread that large. But surprisingly, it might not be the most shocking spread to me. The one that stands out to me the most is going over to this Grizzlies Jazz game. And I look at this and I say, how are the Jazz 5.5 points favorites in this one? The Grizzlies, yes, they don't have John Morant, but they're apparently unbeatable without him. They've won 7 straight games and they beat some really good teams over that stretch. Meanwhile, Utah's blowing leads left and right. They're just falling apart. So that one is an interesting one for me. I think the Grizzlies, I like them to win outright. But yeah, the massive spreads, clearly the biggest storyline tonight. And you got to track, as you guys were saying, which stars are going to play how many minutes. I think one of you mentioned Kevin Durant, he's played 39 in his last 5, 39 or more in his last 5. I'm not sure he gets up to that tonight. And I'm not sure the Nets cover the spread as a result.
He played 42 over the weekend, and look, the whole league benefited from a day off yesterday, and that was a game in which Durant played 42 minutes against the Hawks, and they only scored 115, lost the game, and he shot. I still can't get over it. Like, that's a game he gave it his all. 55 points. He's 68% from the floor, makes 8 of 10 from 3. And they still lose the game. But I think you both make some great points in there. Like Kyrie Irving as a full-time player, you're starting to see like, okay, he's having a little bit of a harder time getting his legs under him. He didn't shoot a great percentage. He did shoot north of 30 points against that Atlanta team. Another note you mentioned, Jeff, like the Grizzlies, while there's really not much for them to play for because they're kind of stuck where they are in the standings, they've played so well without Ja. I think the record is 19-2 without him in the lineup this year.
Now.
It's crazy.
Is it 20-2 now?
20-2, yeah.
20-2. And they haven't played since last Friday. So like there's a balance of getting some rest at this time of year, but then also trying to get reps. And like this, I think this Grizzlies team, they don't know how to take it down a notch, if you will, given where they are in the standings. They're not looking at it that way. They're not a veteran team like Phoenix. And the other note on the larger spreads, like Brooklyn hasn't been great against the number this year. They've covered just a smidge below 40% of their games. So it makes you confident in a spread like this. And, I would argue too, a team like the Pistons, the way they've played in the second half is a big reason why I would be scared of a big spread, because the Pistons have been awesome against the number. So with all of that being said, your general takeaways from when you look at the numbers, you look at the spreads, and then you look at some of the salaries. Gary, and like I said, has a write-up over on the DraftKings playbook. So what method, Gary, and from is it stars and scrubs? It's more of a balance. Where would you start trying to build something here from a lineup perspective?
Yeah, I guess I think a slate like this, and let's be honest, most of the slates the past month and a half, just because there's been so many guys sitting out and so many, quote unquote season-ending injuries from particular teams. It's really hard not to be seduced by the stars and scrubs build, because there's just so many places to save that you can put 2 just elite level players into a single lineup and really not feel too bad about the end result. I think it's just about finding the stars you really trust to have that minutes volume tonight. And I think, strangely, just because of the narrative surrounding this particular player the last couple of years, and how I would say non-aggressive Mike Budenholzer has been in getting his big minute or his big guys big minutes, I think Giannis is probably the guy I feel safest in tonight, just because even with the Bulls having struggled a bit the last month or so, this is a game they need to hold on to 5th place in the Eastern Conference. Zach LaVine probably not going to play in this game, was the report we got from Adrian Wojnarowski, but still think they have enough here, especially with Patrick Williams kind of playing better and really kind of getting back into a 25 to 35 minute per game role. I think they have enough to at least keep this game close. And we know Giannis, it's never a question of, is he going to be efficient enough on a given slate to be a viable player? It's always, is he just going to play enough minutes? Like, this is someone who, I believe it's the last 10 times he's played over 35 minutes in a game, he's averaging over 70 DraftKings points in those games. So it's just a matter of, does he have to play impactful, meaningful minutes in the fourth quarter? And I think the Bulls can keep this at least close enough, especially in Chicago, to get that done. I mean, the last time Giannis and the Bucks had to play the Bulls in Chicago, he needed 38 minutes. He scored, I believe, 68 DraftKings points. So we have a template here for Giannis. And I think he's the guy I would sort of start my build around. And then if you want to insert a second star, maybe if you feel good about Embiid just going up against the Pacers, and maybe he won't need 35 minutes to do damage against the Pacers. He might only need 28 because especially if Goga Bitadze isn't playing, they don't really have a center. So I would say maybe Embiid as your second guy, but Giannis to me is the stud I trust the most on this slate. I think you're muted, Glash.
Pardon me. Sorry about that. Thank you, Gary. Boston not playing tonight, but Milwaukee and Philly both with the same record at 48 and 30. They can pull even with Boston if each of those teams win tonight, which creates a whole cluster for that potential 2 seed. And of course, that's important because we're talking about the potential of getting home court for 2 rounds as opposed to 1. So that is something to consider as well. There is something to play for there for the Bucks as well in this game tonight. And like Garion said, yes, the latest on Zach LaVine is he's unlikely to play with that knee injury. So, and look, I think there's always some correlation when you look at the line, and I think the line's moved. It was at 4.5, I think, this morning, but it's at now it's up to 6.5. So I guess that does indicate, Gary, that the books are LaVine, of course, not being active helps move the line, but Milwaukee, it's still close enough where I think it feels like Milwaukee's still going to give it a full go here.
Yeah, again, it's not a 17-point line, which is generally not a classification you have to make, but on this particular slate, I think you do. It's just a closer line for a star player against this is a potential first-round playoff matchup. It's a decent matchup for Milwaukee. It's a game that I think will stay close enough. Because again, what is close in the NBA nowadays? I would say it's like 13 points in the fourth quarter. Giannis is going to have to check back in. This is not the 1990s. So
it's true.
I think Chicago is going to keep it close enough where Giannis is going to have to play 36, 37 minutes tonight.
Since when has Giannis had small forward eligibility? That doesn't seem very fair.
I mean, I could go on for hours about how much DraftKings slate to slate changes player position eligibility and how much it annoys me. But that's just for another day. That's another day.
I know, but that one feels new.
He's been hanging around small forward for a little bit. He has
okay.
Most of the season he was power forward center, but the small forward thing's been about 3 weeks.
Wow.
It really sort of kicked in when Brook Lopez came back and they could slot him in as the center. I mean, that's the crazy thing about the algorithm and these positional things. It's usually not even about the player. It's about who else is around him.
Okay. Good. So next time you make fun of my grilled chicken, I know where your soft spot is. I can twist the knife on
the fact that LeBron James has been listed at literally every position this year on DraftKings really does annoy me.
Nice. I'm going to write that down. Ways I can get Gary and Thorne upset when he offends me in my ability to grill. Jeff Pratt, how about you? Who is your anchor? Gary and likes Giannis. Who do you like?
Yeah, I like Giannis too. He's going to get his numbers. Okay. I don't think this one's going to be as close as you guys apparently do. I guess I've kind of turned into the resident Bulls hater at DraftKings. I've lost track of exactly what the record is for this stat, but I used to use it all the time.
Oh, it's terrible.
They're horrible against teams above 600. I think it's 3-19, 3-20, something like that. They're god awful. And
now, wait. That stat was specific to the East and the West.
I thought it was just
no, it was everybody.
Yeah, no, it's against everyone who's above 600.
Okay,
I believe.
I don't need them to win. I just need them to lose by like 10.
I don't know. Without LaVine, I'm not sure how you keep pace with them. So I'm a little worried about Giannis's minutes. I mean, he's going to get his points. He's going to do what he does. So he's certainly not a bad foundational piece to build around. Look at me being surprising here. I'm paying up for the most expensive guy on the slate. I think Nikola Jokic, you guys talked about, you're not sure if the Spurs want to make the play-in tournament. It would be better for them if they missed it so they get a better draft pick, but they've been playing like they want to make it. as of late. You can't tell Greg Popovich's crew that you shouldn't make the playoffs. They've won 6 of their last 7, and that one loss was by 1 point to Memphis. So I think Jokic is going to have to play a lot tonight. I mean, he's 12.5K for a reason. He scores 70 plus DK fantasy points in 5 straight games. He saw a usage rate of 46% in his last one, which is just absolutely absurd. He's turning into a bit of a heavy MVP favorite on DraftKings Sportsbook for a reason. I mean, the guy shows up every night. And while I'm a little worried about Giannis's minutes, I think that we know how horrible Denver is without him on the floor. So I think San Antonio will keep this one kind of close. And that's why I think the spread for the Nuggets right now was hanging around 9 points earlier. It is. They're -9 right now. I'm not sure they can cover that just because they're so bad when he's not on the floor. And if they want to cover it, he's going to have to play a lot of minutes tonight.
Denver's still not locked into a playoff spot. They're coming off a win over the Lakers. They didn't cover against the Pacers on the road a few games ago, and they didn't take care of business at home against Minnesota. So, and look, the Spurs have been a good team against the number this year. They've been slightly over 500, nothing great, but they are above 500 against the spread this season. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I like it too. I think the Spurs, that's a good point, Jeff. Like there's the other side of the argument. I totally get it. Like the whole tanking thing. It's like, players don't tank, right? Front offices try to. There's a philosophical approach to it, but guys are playing for jobs too at this point. So like a team like, I know Gary mentioned the Pacers, but I watched the Pacers give the Celtics a hard time last Friday. Like they've got some dudes on that team that can light it up, make shots some nights. And it's not every night, but some night they can have a night and make a lot of threes and be a pain. So I don't know. Where are we going to find some value? Where are we finding value on this gigantic slate tonight, Garion?
I think there's a couple different places. I think point guard is probably the position where you're going to have some of the most obvious values. And in a way that's sort of nice because, I mean, I came into this slate, I would say last night, if I was just doing sort of like ownership projections in my head, which maybe doesn't matter that much on a slate this size, like a 12-game slate, I don't think you ever get some of those like just eye-popping like 70% ownerships. Because there's just too many ways to go. But someone like Trey Jones, I mean, we're just talking about the Spurs. Jones has just been so consistent when DeJounte Murray has not been available. I believe he's averaging 41 DraftKings points the last 4 times he's gotten to start in place of Murray. And that includes 2 really nice performances in their last 2 games. Now, granted, both of those against Portland. Denver's defense is definitely a step up from the Portland Trailblazers. But, Jones seems pretty much locked into, like, I would say floor 30 DraftKings points, ceiling 45, maybe 50, but probably 45. But the price tag, $4,000, like generally speaking, I'm just going to keep railing against the algorithm for whatever reason. I guess I'm trying to get fired, but you'll see guys who are entering like their third, like injury spot start, that sort of territory. It generally goes the first start, the pricing was already out, so they're low 3,000, which is where he was in that first game against Portland, 3,200. Immediate reaction to that, you got to put him up about $1,000, so he's 4,200 in his next start. He performs in that start, 40.25 DraftKings points. I was expecting to see Jones up in the 5K range. The fact that he's $200 cheaper than he was in his last game, it makes absolutely no sense. I just can't wrap my mind around it. So I figured Jones was just going to be such just overwhelming chalk that as much as I liked him, I might have to second guess myself a little bit when it came to how much of him I was getting into lineups. But with the emergence of someone like Kobe White, who is probably going to get 30 to 35 minutes and has also performed very, very well when given the opportunity when Zach LaVine is not playing, I think Kobe is in a really nice spot, and he's actually cheaper than Trey Jones. So I think Kobe sort of entering the fray has makes me like Trey Jones a little bit more, just because I think it gives people other options to go to in this particular price range.
Trey Jones, that Spurs team, very fast-paced team too. So there's always the possibility they can run up and down. A lot of possession.
Milwaukee's super fast-paced too, so it's not like White's going to have a slow tempo game. But right. Both of these scripts are pretty nice for these players.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Kobe didn't have a great game against Miami, but I see what a couple promising outings there. But like I said, the injury is what opens the door for him. Jeff Pratt, where would you like to explore the slate when it comes to value?
I'm not traveling far from my last pick. Why don't we go back to that Spurs Nuggets Nuggets game and look at a couple of Nuggets guards in Monte Morris and Bones Highland, just because San Antonio is horrible against guards. I mean, you saw it there. They're ranked 28th in DK fantasy points allowed to point guards. Monte Morris has really been producing as of late, as you saw right there. 22 fantasy points or higher in 4 straight games. Bone Highland just $100 cheaper. He hasn't been producing as much, but he's seeing a higher usage rate. So I think pick your poison a little bit there. I would imagine that Bones is probably going to be a little bit more popular tonight. He's a little cheaper. He's a bigger name. A lot of people are on the Bones Highland hype train this season. Monte is quietly doing his work. And then sticking with the guards, we're going to go to the OKC Portland game, which is just an absolute disaster. I really don't want anything to do with this, at least from a sportsbook perspective. And who knows what's going to happen from a DFS.
Look at all this
standpoint.
red on this.
Dude,
you just click these 2 teams. Yeesh.
Well, and Brandon Williams is questionable for this game too.
Exactly. So I'm looking.
Put all like the top 7 names on the DraftKings pricing list for Portland would then all be out. Like, it's insane.
Exactly, which makes me look at Keon Johnson. I think he's hovering around 5K. If you scroll down a little bit, he's right at 5K. And I mean, OKC's horrible against guards as well, and he's scored 28 or more fantasy points in 3 of his last 4. Feels like you have to at least consider him right now with his price point, especially if like Arian was saying, what was it? Who was it who's going to be out? Gary,
Brandon Williams.
Brandon Williams. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got like Chris
out.
Dunn is like probably in a pretty nice spot. He's like 4-8 in this game. And then you go to the OKC side and like Vit Krejci, like, sure, why not? He's going to play like 37, 38 minutes just out of pure desperation. Waters is always kind of a fun play too, although he's not, his minutes don't seem quite as locked in as Krejci's, but yeah, that's kind of the thing to go back to like what you were first talking about, Glash, when it came to like, what is your like overall strategy for building lineups tonight? You could just stick 2 stars and like another 8K player in and say, you know what? I'm just going to fill out literally 3 or 4 of these positions in my lineup with someone in this Portland OKC game. And you probably wouldn't be wrong.
That's amazing. I mean, you couldn't pay me to watch this game. This is like,
it might be fun.
There's nothing here, right? I mean, the Thunder, what the Thunder last game, they beat the Suns, right? Like that was like their Super Bowl, right? Or did they play another game after that?
Yeah, that was they beat the Suns, and then you had the Poku triple double. So it's never going to get better than that.
Right. They beat the Suns, and
they played another game. Yeah,
I saw so many Thunder fans like so upset on Twitter and Instagram that happened. I mean, those minutes for Vit Krejci pop. What was he? He's seen 37 plus minutes in each of his last 4, something like that. I think
he broke 40 at one point too. Yeah.
41. He's not 37 a lot, but 32, 35, 41. Yeah. I mean, you see in the court and you ask most people, you have no idea who this guy is. So it's
nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah.
We have a little breaking news, not like Slate.
On the Magic, right? You're going to get to this? Okay, go ahead.
Franz Wagner is going to play. He's back. Which for all the Iggy Brisdakis fans out there, I was hoping to maybe get a little Iggy into my lineup at 3-2 tonight, but that will no longer be the case as Wagner is going to start and he's going to play. So,
okay, and then Jalen Suggs is also going to play. So does that impact things?
I mean, I think there was I had less inclination to like try to get RJ Hampton or someone like that in there. I think Markelle Fultz has just been kind of playing really well lately. And his price tag is right where you'd kind of want it to be. So I wouldn't say he's like a screaming value or anything, but he was really the one sopping up most of the extra minutes or extra points or assists or whatever when Jalen Suggs wasn't playing. So it was really Brisdakis was kind of the maybe one big value play the Magic were going to supply, but now it's just nothing.
If you have any questions in the YouTube chat, also the Twitch chat, be sure to chime in. We will take them. Talking NBA, lots of potential news coming in, that's for sure. But it's a big slate, 12 games. We can work in some bigger picture stuff as well as the show rolls on. Gary and Thorne and Jeff Pratt in tonight for Meiselman and Shirag. Shirag here tonight will be on the NBA. What's that?
It's just just 5:30, so I'm looking at a lot of the news here. But like TJ McConnell is available tonight. I thought he was just out for
really.
What is going on?
When? Yeah.
And also our boy Goga Batazzi has been officially ruled out. So it is Terry
No.
Taylor time once again, 4,400. Gotta like you some Terry Taylor. But yeah, I have no idea what TJ McConnell is going to do tonight. Don't ask me a single question about TJ McConnell. I didn't think he was coming back this season.
What?
I forgot he even existed, to be quite honest with you.
Fair.
But hey, it's maybe a TJ McConnell revenge game playing against the Sixers.
Maybe. Yeah.
Didn't he almost break the single season steals record last year during a game?
Maybe.
Something like that.
That
That's
seems
the
like a
only
TJ
thing that
McConnell
pops
thing.
out. Yeah, that's the only thing that pops out when you think of TJ McConnell. So knowing him, like you said, it's the revenge game. So knowing him, he's probably gonna go for 30 tonight.
Yeah, Jeff Pratt is telling you to go sell your mortgage on the TJ McConnell steals prop tonight on the DraftKings Sports.
This kind of feels like not to like shoehorn baseball in here for a second, but like, you know, when Noah Syndergaard came back last year and pitched like an inning at the end of the season just to like do it.
Yeah.
That's what this feels like. Why is TJ McConnell playing in this game? I have no idea.
Well, is it so they can be like, all right, is this a reason to maybe lose? I don't
He's an all right player.
Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe it actually helps them. Yeah, you're right. It's fair.
Like he's gonna try. He's gonna give 110%. That's what he's known
Honestly,
for.
the one thing that he might do, I mean, I really did want to treat this as complete fluff, but I will try to analyze it for a second. Tyrese Halliburton had been playing. I know there was the one game that just got way out of hand where he only had to play like 27 minutes, but he really has been. He and Buddy Hield have had to play like 38, 39, 40 minutes in a lot of these games. So maybe with McConnell back, Halliburton, whose price point has gotten up above 9K, maybe that does make him slightly less appealing. Just already in a spot where a blowout was on the table. So
yeah, it is worth noting too that Lance Stevenson has a great game every 2 games. So he's really go ahead and look at him. He dropped 7 fantasy points last game, 32, then 19. Scroll down, I think he had another 34-point performance after that one. So yeah, I mean he's due for one if we're looking at it like that. But maybe I have no idea. This Pacers team is just such a disaster at this.
Terry Taylor. Terry Taylor can't hurt.
Yeah.
We have about 15 more minutes. So if you have questions, again, jump on in. Want to promote what's Shrug going? Shrug's going on the bet stream tonight. What time's he going on? He's going on. It's
like 10:30.
10:30 Eastern. Yeah, for Lakers Suns. That'd be fun. So Shrug.
Oh, they're gonna make him watch a Lakers game. That's not nice.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A LeBron-less Lakers game, which by the way, that's another thing we could spend a lot of time on, the Lakers and all these national TV games they have with no LeBron. Which, by the way, is there any interest in the Lakers tonight, or is this just you just stay away from this team at this point? I
mean, Russ is sort of cheap for Russ, I guess, with the role he's going to have. Although his best games have come without AD and LeBron. I would say too, in that price range at guard, like I'm just so much more interested in someone like Kevin Porter Jr., who's a couple $100 cheaper than Russ anyway. We made so much about the implied point total of the Nets. Like Houston also gets to play in this amazing game script. And Porter Jr., basically since Houston was just like, hey, Eric Gordon, sit down. Hey, Dennis Schroeder, sit down. We don't need you guys anymore this season. Porter's just going to play 36 minutes a game. He's gone over 50 DraftKings points in 3 of his last 4. I think he's actually averaging like 1.5 DraftKings points per minute the last 4 games. That's like all-star elite level production as a fantasy asset. So I think Porter's actually underpriced in this game. I like him a lot. And the presence of him would, again, make just Russ less appealing because he's a little bit more expensive.
Well, and he sort of fits the category that you said before. Like if you want to play Jokic and or Giannis, he might be your 8K guy that you slide in there and then fill it out with guys in that 3 to, mid 3, high 3 to 4, mid 4 range.
2.5 star lineup. Yeah.
Right. From a sportsbook perspective, the gigantic lines jump out. But what do we suspect is going to be? I mean, Jeff, you kind of already said it. Like you're not too big into this Bucks Bulls game being potentially close. Like it wouldn't surprise you, but Atlanta Toronto is interesting. Charlotte Miami is an interesting game because that like Charlotte could win the play-in. Maybe they've got to beat the Nets likely in the first round of the play-in, that is. And then Atlanta, I mean, Gary, and you're a Raptors guy. Like where are the Raptors at in terms of importance of the game? Is it I know we've talked about it before. Nick Nurse plays his guys so many minutes. I mean, how do you look at this kind of game for them?
Yeah, I'd say from a DFS perspective, I think you really like Pascal Siakam tonight. But from a sportsbook perspective, it's an interesting spot. I will preface this by saying I am the sort of like sports fan who never bets on his own team because I don't want to lose twice in a single night. So when I say I'm leaning towards the Hawks, maybe take that with a grain of salt. But I do think the presence of OG Anunoby is really important. I think it's kind of understated sometimes. Like the Raptors are, I think, like a 650 win percentage team when Anunoby's playing. They are below 500 when he is not playing. He is that important to their defense. And particularly, he's one of like two of those 6'9" guys that they only have on their roster that can actually shoot 3-pointers. So the spacing he provides as well is really important. He's questionable for tonight. We don't know his status. And the Hawks, like from a net rating perspective, from an offensive rating perspective in particular, across their last 10 games, they've just been one of the best teams in basketball. I would probably lean Hawks here in a game that I would say, while the Raptors do still need to win games, they're pretty locked into either the 5 or 6 seed, and I don't think they really care which one of those they get necessarily. The Hawks need this game to stay in that upper half of the play-in tournament. So I would probably take the points here with the Hawks. And, going back to a game that Jeff was talking about, I would agree with him. Like, I think one of the other best bets on the board tonight is just Memphis with the points. Like, it's shocking what this line is. I mean, we've railed against the Bulls, rightfully so. In the last 22 games, the Jazz have played against teams with a winning percentage above 600. They are 5-16-1 against the spread.
Yeah.
They are so bad. I mean, maybe bet them like first half with the points, but like fade them immediately at halftime because they cannot hold a lead to save their lives. But yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of when we talk about this Memphis team and the fact they're like 20-2 without John Morant is that Raptors team that won the championship in 2019 that was like 19-3 without Kawhi Leonard. Like, you just get into these situations where you have such a strong supporting cast and they just play so hard every night. That like, I don't need Morant in the lineup to feel good about the Grizzlies. Like, they should just be favored in this game.
Yeah. That Raptors team for sure, because it's right. That was a big sample without Kawhi. The Clippers even had a stretch without Kawhi where they played really well. Not this year, but like, I think the first year they had him. Yeah, last year. Boston had that case without Kyrie Irving for a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I think at this point you got to Memphis is what it is. But maybe that is interesting though. Like, what do they know about Utah? Because like they're not. I mean, I just looked up their ATS record at home.
Historically, they've been one of the best net rating teams at home across like the last 5 years. So I think you sort of just go into a game where one team doesn't have their star and Utah is healthy and is playing at home, and you give them a couple points. But yeah, this line just seems off.
It does seem off, doesn't it? Looking at the net rating at home this year. I hope I have this right. I think I do. They have the net rating of a 9.8. The Utah Jazz leads the NBA.
At home. Fantastic at home.
Net rated at home, number 1 in the NBA. Then Golden State, then Memphis. So there you go. All right, fair enough. We'll see. But yeah, I think Memphis hasn't played since maybe that actually doesn't help them. Like the fact they've had a few days off, like they were just on such a heater.
They had that game. Was it Saturday or Friday? They rested like all of their players, or have they really not had a game since?
I don't think they played since last Friday.
Okay, so Friday they rested everybody, and then I guess they were just trying to get everyone like a 6-game break. That's cool, or 6-day break. That's cool.
They've kind of earned it at this stage. So okay, keep an eye on that. And then the other game, I mean, like we talked about with the Raptors and the Hawks, it's definitely a more important game for Atlanta. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What about Miami being such a short favorite at home against Charlotte?
I think Miami can 100% cover this 5-point spread. Is it
right?
5? It is
4.5.
4.5. It's 4.5.
Even better. I think they can absolutely cover that. I mean, Charlotte just lost by 30 to Philly, and the Heat have bounced back well after that weird little rough patch where they kind of imploded. We're fighting each other on the sidelines, but in their last 4 games, they beat the Raptors by 5, Bulls by 18, Celtics by 8, Kings by 23. Besides Sacramento, all of those teams I'm comfortable saying are better than the Hornets. And you don't really know which Hornets team's going to show up on a nightly basis. This is an important game for them, but Miami, assuming they still do want to hang on to the 1 seed, which I think, it's worth questioning with the Nets continuing to slide down in the playing game. But assuming they do want to win this one, I think they can cover that 5-point spread.
In spots like this too, I feel like you tend to side at this time of year, really important games, you tend to side with the higher rated defensive team, right? And that is Miami, number 4 defensive rating in the NBA. Whereas you got to scroll all the way down. Charlotte is number.
I'll say just on this game, because this might be taken off the board in a second. Probably not going to adjust too much, but Lowry officially out tonight for the Heat.
Okay. Now
they have a lot of guard depth. Like even Victor Oladipo, I know he's looked bad.
It is gone. It's gone. It just disappeared.
Yeah.
There
but like Oladipo's looked terrible since he's come back really for the Heat, but he looked incredible in that game Sunday against the Raptors. And if that's something that they can even rely on for like 20 minutes a game, between that and Hero and Gabe Vincent, who is going to play in this game, I think Vincent's back, Lowry's out. So that does at least stabilize the point guard position a little bit in Lowry's stead. So I'm with Jeff. I think whatever this number comes back at, like maybe now it's 3.5 or 4. Like I don't think Lowry's going to move the line that much. Yeah. But I would be willing to take the Heat here too.
Okay. Would you at all be interested in the guard like LaMelo Ball or Rozier, or do you still think they hold it in like defensively on the perimeter without Lowry?
I mean, I think they're fine. You can attack Tyler Hero, obviously. But like I said, there's just other places I think I'd be more willing to go at point guard than LaMelo. He's in a fine spot, but this is about as slow a matchup as you're going to get for Charlotte. Like they won't slow down for a lot of teams. They will slow down slightly for Miami. And then just Miami's been so good against point guards this season defensively. Yeah, I would probably steer clear of LaMelo tonight.
Okay, staying on this game.
You talked about.
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead. Yep.
Sorry, yeah.
No,
Gary, and I know you talked about Victor Oladipo, but I think you need to take a serious look at Max Strus, who comes in at just 4.3K tonight, which is a little surprising. He scored 33 plus fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games. He's getting the start for them, playing plenty of minutes. Absolutely killed the Celtics a couple of games ago. And
he was 7 for 9 against the Raptors on Sunday from 3.
Yeah, I mean he's killing everyone. Look at that 3-point percentage. He's gone 44% or higher in 4 of his last 5 games. Crazy. That's crazy. And he's taking a lot of shots. So I mean 7 for 9 against the Raptors, like you just said, Gary. And I think 4.3K, it's a little low for him, especially with Lowry out now. I think you should definitely jump on that one.
So with no Lowry too, Jerry has chimed in on Twitch. He's got 2 questions. We'll take question 1. This is about this game. With Lowry out, how about Jimmy Butler as a potential, as a guy who could be one of your higher priced guys at 8,400?
Yeah. I mean, I did take a long look at Butler, even when I was writing that article this morning. I just think the ceiling right now with Jimmy maybe isn't as high as some of the guys around him, even with Lowry not playing, just because it does seem like the fulcrum point of this offense, even though he doesn't start, is Tyler Hero. Butler, at least since having his spat with Eric Spoelstra, has become like willing to take 3-pointers a little bit more. But I just think when you look at Butler, his like DFS ceiling is like 50 DraftKings points. And I just think you can do better with $9,000 at those 2 positions. I just think you can shoot for something higher.
I think Jimmy Butler might be the most disengaged superstar I've ever seen. And like you said, Gary, and he did wake up a little bit after that spat with Eric Spoelstra, but 100%, the offense is the one major area of concern for Miami. They've got just 2 guys averaging over 20 points per game, and it's Jimmy and Tyler Hero, and both of them are just barely squeaking over 20 points. So while they are elite defensively, I believe they're in the bottom half of the league in offensive rating. At least they have been over the past 20 or so games. So they're not fantastic. Jimmy, as you can see, I don't know. He's done a little more lately. What used to be my favorite player prop consistently on DraftKings Sportsbook was the under for Jimmy Butler points, rebounds, and assists, because he just, as I mentioned, you watch him play out there and it's like he doesn't want to be there. He cares about winning. That's what he cares about most, and you can respect that. But from a DFS perspective and from a sportsbook perspective, it really makes you want to go away from him.
Last 15 games, Miami Heat, 21st in the NBA, Jeff, in offensive rating.
Really? Wow. I was completely off on that one. Sorry.
No,
guys.
you were right.
They're one of those
said-
teams like this is such a like a modern NBA thing to say, but it's so applicable for the Heat specifically. If their 3-pointers aren't falling, they are a terrible offensive team. Like I think they have a great when they hit, I think it's 15 threes in a game. They're like 25-5.
Wow.
But that's like the entirety to their offense is hitting those 3-pointers and having someone like Strus or like Oladipo or whoever come off the bench and hit some of those shots. That's really key for them. And just to go wrap up every loose end we've had so far, OG Anunoby ruled out tonight for the Raptors.
Which I don't know if that takes them. So they're off the board right now. So if we get an adjustment, we'll be sure to share, but not seeing anything yet on Miami, Charlotte, and Atlanta, Toronto, currently off the board. So we'll share if we get an update there. Last question from Jerry is about Tyrese Maxey tonight against the Pacers. If either of you have a thought on his roster potential, Tyrese Maxey.
At 6,400.
$6,400 tonight.
Seems a little high. Seems a little high to me based off what he's been doing lately. You look at the production, he's gotten under 20 DK fantasy points in 3 of his last 4. The usage rate hasn't necessarily, at least I believe it hasn't been nearly as high as it was when James Harden first came to the team. He really was meshing with Harden well when Harden first came to the team. And now he's taking a bit of a step back, still getting his points up, but not doing nearly as much outside of that. So 6,400, I don't know about you, Gary, and that seems a little high for me.
Yeah, he's kind of in a no man's land at that salary. Just because, you know, we focus so much on when that trade was made, what would happen to Joel Embiid's usage rate. Like I think he was at that time, we had seen him kind of carry this like 38% usage rate. Would that be able to sustain with James Harden coming in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? It's actually been higher recently. He's playing like a 40% usage rate his past 5-6 games. Harden's still obviously carrying like a 25% usage rate, and that just doesn't leave a lot for the other guys. I mean, Maxey is someone I really like in real life as an asset, but there's just, it's like table scraps left for Maxey at this point. And I also think he's good enough now where if this game gets silly, if we get into like Philadelphia up by 30 points in the third quarter sort of thing, it's like Maxey's not going to be playing garbage time in the fourth quarter either. So I just think this doesn't set up as like an ideal spot for him.
Okay. Yeah. I think Jerry's follow-up was just maybe he was thinking maybe a blowout potentially. Like that would be where.
Yeah. Like I don't think that's a scenario that like benefits Maxey. That's probably like, if you wanted to play like Georges Niang or something like that's the sort of blow territory you're looking at.
Okay. Do either of you have a strong thought on just the playoffs in general and like a big picture take in the league before we wrap up?
The NBA playoffs. If I had to be yay or nay to the NBA playoffs, yay. I enjoy them.
You enjoy them?
I also enjoy them.
Well, do either of you have like a take? Like, do you have a strong feeling on like I think the Nets? I said it off the top. Like I'm not so sure the Nets get in this thing. Like I'm not. But if the Rockets win tonight, would it surprise me? No. I mean, you both have mentioned Kevin Porter. You like his ceiling as a DFS player. I know that's not you saying they're going to win the game, but could it turn into a track meet and maybe they outscore the Nets and they just
it's going to be a track meet. 1,000%. Yeah, I would just say like I feel like there are only 2 teams I really trust in the West. And that would be Phoenix and Memphis. And Memphis is, I mean, again, I think Ja's going to be back for the playoffs, but we don't know that for sure as of right now. And I think in the East, I mean, unfortunately, with the Robert Williams sort of uncertainty, I still just think it's Milwaukee's conference to lose. It's the boring answer. I know that, but I just look at the Bucks and I sort of see a team that I don't think has really been engaged all season. And look, they just got Brook Lopez back. He is such it seems boring with Lopez, but he is such a fixture for their defense, and their potential defensively on the court with Lopez is so much different than what we've been seeing from a checked out team all season long. Like I think Milwaukee is going to flip a switch in the playoffs and their defense is suddenly going to look a lot more like it did last year than it has so far this season.
I completely agree. And I think the MVP odds for Giannis reflect that. I mean, the way this number has bolted up since he had that win against so he had the block that they ruled a goaltend, but then they changed it to a block. Or it was the 3, then the block, whatever it was against Brooklyn. I mean, just unbelievable sequence. They've turned a corner, and you could make the case there.
He had the block against Philly and then the 3 against Brooklyn, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Two different games.
Yeah.
They meshed so closely together. I think they were like two games and
it was like his MVP week. Like his odds got really, really close to Jokic's at that point, and then Jokic pulled away the last couple of days.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, Jeff, you can take us home here. Anything you'd like to get off your chest here as far as big picture? Because this is our final week of shows before the play-in tournament starts. So it's that time.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you guys have said. I feel extremely comfortable saying that Phoenix is going to go back to the NBA Finals at this point. I think Memphis can give them a run for their money. They're young. They're inexperienced. They're going to be great for years to come, but I'm not sure this is their year. It feels like the Suns are built to get back there, and the West is just so weak this year. So I think Phoenix can enter cruise control a little bit, at least until the Western Conference Finals. And then in the East, Milwaukee, they'd be my pick right now. I'm with you, Glash. I think that the Nets, I'm not comfortable even saying that they're going to make it, especially if they're in that 9-10 matchup, because anything can happen in one game, and the Nets aren't playing fantastic as of late, despite the talent they have. The one other team I mentioned, I know the Celtics, the Robert Williams question's up in the air. If he does come back by the second round, assuming Boston's able to advance to the second round, and everything we've heard so far seems like it is going to be the earlier end of that timetable for Robert Williams, closer to 4 weeks than 6 weeks. So if he's back and close to 100%, or at least as close as you can be for that second round matchup, Boston, we know how elite they are defensively with him on the floor, and they've been one of the best offensive teams in the league in the second half of the season. So I'd say watch out for them.
I didn't know, Gary. I didn't know Koff was on the show. I mean, that was very that's a very cough. It sounded like cough for a second. Oh, you gotta get a Celtics thought in there.
I'm sorry, I had to. It's been a whole show.
I'm just kidding. Kinda. Phoenix Suns are overwhelming favorite to come out of the West at plus 115. Yeah, it's hard. My last thought is it's hard to identify anyone of value in the West that you feel good about. I would say, you know what I want to know? When we get to that play-in tournament next week and the Nets are in it, and say the Nets are down like 10 at halftime, I want to see their odds to come out of the East then. And then maybe
might be off the board in game.
Yeah.
Like but really, I'm serious. Like what will it be if they're 320 right now to win the East and to win the championship?
Crazy.
That's absurd.
Can you wait any longer? All right, they're plus 600. That's better than what I've seen before, but like, I'm fascinated if they're in the 10 spot and they got to win 2 play-in games. That number's got to move, right? It's got to move up.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll just say, like, if you are looking for like a dark horse or a number that I don't agree with right now, I do think the Mavericks are underpriced, especially with how they've been playing lately. They have that one star. You could argue they have the best player in any series they're going to be playing in. And they might have a really nice draw too. I think the way you'd want the West playoffs to break for you, if you're like a dark horse team, is play the Jazz in the first round. Check number 1 right now. I think they're lined up 3-6, and then avoid Phoenix till the Western Conference Finals, which they would do in that 3-2 spot. So the Mavericks, to me, I think that's to win the championship, right? Glass 30-1 right now.
Yep. 30-1.
I would think they should be more like 16-20 kind of. I'm surprised their number is 30-1.
Have we heard anything?
Yeah.
Have we heard anything more about Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr.'s availability coming in? It's kind of just been nothing, crickets on that end. Because if one of them comes back, I mean, I like the Nuggets. They've got the experience. He's crazy, but when he's off the floor, they're horrible. So they need one of those guys to come back.
Also 40-1. I know Kawhi made 20 consecutive free throws today, something like that. I mean, it's news. Kawhi was on a basketball court. Norm Powell's probably going to be back tomorrow. I don't know.
And in spurts,
they got the experience.
Paul George has looked pretty good. Admittedly. I know they had a meltdown game. I forget against who, the Bulls, right? But they looked great against New Orleans on Sunday night. So yeah, we'll see. The Clippers could be a scary team in that first round. If the Suns got to get the Clippers, like that could be. Yeah, that could be interesting, right? They could push him around a little bit.
There's some weird grenades in the play-in tournament this year.
Yep.
But they also could just be total flops. So who knows?
Right.
Kind of,
and Clippers, I think the Clippers could probably beat the Wolves, which means they would get the 7 and they could match up with Memphis. So if you're the Clippers probably don't want to play the Suns, I guess that's fair too. We are out of time. That is going to do it for our show tonight. So we got a little news that was helpful. A nice breakdown of the slate, daily fantasy, as well as the sportsbook angles, and a little futures talk here on the show. Regular season ends on Sunday in the NBA. Don't forget, as this regular season winds down, lots of news. You got to monitor that stuff. Keep an eye on our great work over at the DK Playbook, dknation.draftkings.com. Gary and Thorne has a write-up for tonight's slate. Be sure to check that out. Jeff Pratt also does a great job covering all of the news in the NBA on a daily basis to get you set for your lineups and to place your bets. So thanks to both of you for filling in today for Matt Meiselman and Chirag Hira. Brendan Glasheen signing off. Thanks to Eamon and Tom behind the scenes as well for getting us up and running. The slate returns tomorrow for one last look at the Masters field. Emerson, Jeff, and Reed get you set for the Masters. The Sweat returns tomorrow at 11 a.m. This show's at 5 weekdays here at DraftKings on YouTube, Twitch, and then we'll be up on Twitter hopefully tomorrow. So that's going to do it. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you next time. Bye.